Hello, dear students. Today we'll be continuing with the President of India, powers and position. In the first part, we did the election, the method of election of the President, and legislative and executive power. In this lecture, we'll be talking about the rest of the powers and an analysis of the constitutional position of the President. So, the first part covered all these. नाउ फाइनेंशियल पास वी नो दैट मनी बिल जाके ऑर्थो बिलो बोला जाए इट कैन बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड ओनली इन दी लोकसभा सो इट कैनॉट बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन दी राज्यसभा इट कैन ओनली बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन दी लोकसभा एंड बिफोर द इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ अ मनी बिल द प्रायर कंसेंट ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया इज रिक्वायर्ड सो ओनली when his consent is obtained, then the money bill can be introduced in the Lok Sabha. Then the president also causes to be laid before the parliament the annual budget. So the annual financial statement, he causes it to be laid before the houses of the parliament. And in case of any emergency, he can make advances, means money can flow out of the contingency fund of India, and he has that kind of discretion. And lastly, he constitutes finance commission. So we know that after every 5 years, finance commission is constituted, and what does it do? It oversees the distribution of revenues between center and the state. So a finance commission, the task of constituting the finance commission is the domain of the President of India. Now, diplomatic and military powers, all the international agreements and treaties, whatever is concluded or negotiated, that is done on behalf of the president. So it is on the name of the president that such international agreements and treaties are negotiated. So in all international platforms and forums, it is the president of India who represents the country. So he is the figurehead, and all the important work is done in the name. It is another thing that the real power is in the hand of the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers, but the treaty is done by the President. Then the President is also the Supreme Commander of Defense Forces. So we have Army, Navy, and Air Force. President is considered to be the chief commander or the supreme commander of all these forces. And what does he do? The head of the army, the head of the navy, the head of the air force, all the chief of respective defense forces are appointed by the president. Even the president can declare war, or he can cause peace treaty to happen, provided it is having the approval of the parliament. So we know that all international treaties, they are negotiated and concluded on behalf of the president, and he is the supreme commander of the defense forces. So all the heads of army, navy, and air force are appointed by the president. Then the judicial powers. So like we at the union level we have the president, at the state level we have the governor. The difference is that both the president and the governor, while they have the power to grant pardon, means forgiving someone for the crime they did. For example, if a person has been given death sentence, if they appeal to the president, then he can forgive and he can pardon them. So both the president and the governor have the power to pardon, but in cases of death sentence, only the president has the power to grant pardon. So the governor cannot grant pardon in case the sentence is of death. So Article 72 of the Constitution has given the president the power to grant pardon. Reprieve means temporary suspension of the sentence. Suspend means, you know it the meaning. Remit means reducing the amount of sentence. For example, if someone has been given 14 years of imprisonment, that is reduced to 10 years of jail. So this is remit. Commute means changing one form of punishment to another. For example, someone has been given life sentence, so that person's life sentence is reduced to 15 years, or someone has been given vice versa death sentence, but it has been changed to life sentence. So all the sentences two persons convicted by court martial. So in case of military cases where a person is belonging to the military or the armed forces, in that case president exercises this power, and in all cases where death sentences pass, so এই ক্ষমতাটা গভর্নর কাছেও থাকে না, শুধু প্রেসিডেন্টের কাছে থাকে to grant pardon in case of death sentence. However, this power is exercised on the advice of the Council of Ministers headed by the now, emergency powers. So, all the remaining powers are during ordinary situations. In case of extraordinary power, for example, national emergency. For example, when China had attacked India, that was a case of a national emergency. So, it is Article 352. President's rule means when some state is not following or complying with constitutional rules, then the state government can be suspended from there, and instead what will happen, the president's rule or the center's rule will be imposed there. And financial emergency, you all understand, whenever there is some financial crisis or a situation where the financial balance is severely tempered. So Article 352 national emergency, Article 356 president's rule, and Article 360, এই তিনটে আর্টিকেল তোমরা মনে রাখবে। এই তিনটে এমার্জেন্সি শুধু প্রেসিডেন্টের ক্ষমতা আছে এই এমার্জেন্সি ডিক্লেয়ার করা, যে কার্যবলীর মধ্যেও আসে আর একটা ক্ষমতার মধ্যেও আসে। So president is empowered to declare emergencies. However, all these declarations is on the advice of the Council of Minister. তো এখানে ন্যাশনাল এমার্জেন্সি যদি ক্যাবিনেট রিটেন রেকমেন্ডেশন দিচ্ছে, তাহলে প্রেসিডেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া হ্যাজ টু ইম্পোজ or has to declare such emergency. So these are extraordinary powers of the. Now, finally, the constitutional position of the president. So, president, the office of the president is of great dignity. Why? Because we know that he makes all the appointments. So, the prime minister is also appointed by president. Supreme Court judges are also appointed by president. Then, finance commission, UPSC, all the chairmen, election commissioners, all are appointed by the president. So, he has enormous appointment making power. Then he can also declare emergency, national emergency, constitutional emergency. Apart from that, he can grant pardon, so he has judicial power. He is also the supreme commander of armed forces. সো অনেক অনেক ক্ষমতা আছে প্রেসিডেন্টের অফিসে, কিন্তু আমাদেরকে মনে রাখতে হবে কি ইন্ডিয়া একটা পার্লামেন্টারি ফর্ম অফ গভর্নমেন্ট। সো পার্লামেন্টারি ফর্ম অফ গভর্নমেন্টে কি হয় আমরা জানি কি প্রেসিডেন্ট হ্যাজ বিন মেড অনলি আ নমিনাল এক্সিকিউটিভ। রিয়েল পাওয়ার কার কাছে থাকে? The prime minister. So it is the prime minister and his council of minister who exercise the real powers, whereas the president is only a nominal executive. So all the activities done in the name of the president, but who is the real power holder? The prime. So while the president represents the nation, he does not rule the nation. Who rules the nation? The prime minister, his cabinet, and his ministers. However, there are few things in the constitution. For example, Article 78, prime minister has to inform the president about all the decisions of the council of ministers. So we know that prime minister and his cabinet takes most important policy decisions. What they have to do, since the president does not attend cabinet meetings, however it is the duty of the prime minister to keep the president informed about all the decisions. So if a president is very vigilant means if he is very careful, if his presence of mind is there, if he is extra cautious, he can make for a good government. Why? Because he can use his right to be consulted. So all the time whenever major policies have been made or any emergency is supposed to be declared or any appointment is to be made, the president can, somewhere in practical terms, he can exercise his power to some extent. Apart from that, we know that the constitution makers did not vest any substantial power. So most of the power, appointment making power, then financial power, all the powers the president exercises on the advice of the prime minister and his council of minister. However, things like ordinance making, I had mentioned in the earlier lecture what does ordinance means. When one of the house of the parliament, for example, if Lok Sabha has been dissolved or if the houses of the parliament are not in session, then the president on behalf of the parliament can introduce laws. So ordinance have the same impact as laws. So president can make ordinance according to article 123 of the constitution. He can declare emergency. So in to some extent he can exercise his power, but more or less the president, especially in case of India, is only a nominal executive. If you compare him to the president of United States of America, there is literally no comparison, because the president of United States is a very very powerful authority. Compared to that, the president of India has only been made a nominal executive, whereas the real power is in the hand of the prime minister and the council of ministers. So this is it for today's lecture. We will discuss other aspects of Indian government and politics in the next topic, in the next lesson.